start looking at it. I don't think they've activated any kind of PHP on the server.
Who are they using as their host?
It's the, they've got the City of St. George IT guys.
They've got to have PHP activated. It's really weird.
I double checked. None of the sites for any of the senior centers have PHP in them. Okay. So none of them are running PHP. I don't have any Google Analytics on either. Because the PHP is not running.
For Curtis to include a script into the
When I put my stuff into it, okay, I was like, well, okay, maybe it's just
I wrote a clone command
our
a while
server
ago. Then he
is one of
changed
those weird
stuff,
ones
so
that'll pull up the
I didn't bother.
index of PHP
updating
first.
anything.
So I put an HTML tag across the top and turned it into index.html
They
and
used to
ran it.
CICD clone
Okay.
VM and the VM and then.
And all it did was just pull up the information.
Yeah.
It
So trying
didn't
to find everything.
organize it, it didn't do squat with it.
Working on a custom
No header, no
script
nothing, it was just the
thing
HTML stuff.
is whenever
I'm like,
I completed
what
it.
the hell? Yeah.
I missed
Got an error.
Ooh, someone's been touching the screen again. Yes.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, there is, well,
It
I'm
was
not
me.
very surprised with this. There's
I
no
always like to
key
go touch the
anywhere.
screen. I was like,
Yeah.
Spencer sat here.
No, it was Chris. He's been on that.
I've never sat on the middle row. I sit in the back of Stacy in our peer mentoring class.
It's me.
This is what it does.
Yes,
No
Chris,
hair,
you're
no
my
footer.
universal scapegoat.
What? The first slider that I found that I was trying to use, called anything slider, would do that exact same thing to me. But on the school's servers, I could not get it to work. So I switched to an HTML5 based one, but it would do that exact same thing.
Check, check.
But even
I could never
check.
get it to work.
But see, that's weird that even the PHP analytics is not working. I have no information. But
Let's see. He already said What?
okay, so I'm gonna have to extend just a hair.
many gigs do you want the hard drive for these machines?
Yeah, I think mine was about 12. It's fine. Okay. I need, these are both the same, now I just had to go in and change the IP addresses. Oops. Already lost Joe. Gotta change something.
Machines can put on in more servers ever.
Yeah, I know, I was doing that too.
If you read it, you don't have a month in that whole equipment yet. Yeah.
Yes.
These women are dead, let's move on.
Wow. That one doesn't want to do anything. Are we all creating machines? Is that why it's ground to a standstill?
Well, you know us.
I have mine made.
That's not right. Apparently I can't change my. Well, it's not restarting now. There we go. There we go. Alright, just close that. Okay. So let me, over here on our Dixie site, I've got the instructions, kind of what I want to go through today. It's called My drbd How-To. And so we've been talking about replication and high availability, and we kind of already know what those are. We know why we want those. And so we're going to look at one mechanism of how we can set this up. And I've just chosen to apply it, this particular topic, to. Just forced to shut the door. Using this particular topic for MySQL, but we could apply, as you'll see here in a minute, we could apply this particular technique to Apache or any file system, any folder that we want to be saved or be replicated. Okay, so essentially drbd stands for distributed. Do you know what it is, Chris?
I don't know what it stands for yet.
Distributed replicated block device. And essentially it's RAID 1 across the network. What's RAID 1 again? Mirroring, right? And so the key components of it are, first, we've got to create identical Linux systems. So what I did, and I asked you to do this the other day, is I created one Linux system and then I cloned it. And I made sure the first Linux system had free space. However much free space is up to you. But I think I created 12 gig, and then I used 2 for my root file system, and I left 10 free space. So, that's what I said. Make sure you have free partition. If you modify the partition table, you should reboot your machine at this point. In fact, that's kind of probably where I'll pick it up here in just a second. Issue the following command to update and install, and then we'll add some utilities.
Have you changed the host name between your 2 machines also?
Oh yeah, that's what I was doing here a second ago. So I don't know that you have to change all of them, but the first one is Etsy hosts. I changed this line to the appropriate IP address and appropriate names, Etsy host, and then Etsy host name. Yeah. So basically it's those two. Okay, so I'm going to first look at this. Fdisk. So all I see is no. Oh yeah, SDA, okay. So it says SDA is about 13 gig. SDA1 though is not. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure, I think I said that somewhere here. Basically I need to add the partition back and set it to a type 82. Now I've written down most of the instructions on how I'm going to follow this, but this one I did not. You guys have played with like mounting and Fdisk and CFdisk and all that, MKFS and other classes, haven't you? A little bit. This isn't totally foreign. All right, so I'm just going to do CFdisk. And I have free space right there. I don't care about the one up above, I don't know why I created that. But essentially all I'm going to do here is go in here and create a new primary partition and make it type 82. And I guess that's even okay. See, let's press key to continue. Oh, it's not there.
Yeah, it was perfect.
So maybe that, oops. Well, I don't know that even needs to be Linux swap. I don't know, but that's the one I tested. I think the default one that we had was probably okay. So I'm doing that on both of my machines. And I should have done this before I cloned the machine, but I didn't. So you get to see it twice, and that'll help you remember. CFdisk, come down here, primary that. Type the 82. Write the partition. Oops, did I not do that last time? I didn't see it. Yes. Oh, yes. Quit. Quit. And when you change the partition table, you got to reboot.
I have a question.
Yep.
Can you just create that manually when we're installing the system? Just tell it to create?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
That's already there.
Yeah, I just didn't do that. Alright, let's. MySQL C. What? Oh. So I'm going to boot those back up and give it just a second, and then SSH into. Now the rest of my commands are down here as well, and once again, I probably could have saved myself some time had I actually went up until this point before I cloned them, because essentially now I've got to install some utilities. I've got to create this file. I can copy paste, so it's not going to take me too long. I have to create a particular file, and for some reason my web page here is not formatting this correctly. So you want to take note in just a second of how I'm typing this in, because format is going to matter in 1 second. So it looks like I'm back up here, and that one must be running on a slower machine. That's okay. I'll just start. So I need to do sudo apt-get install drbd. Actually, this is content. So drbd, once again, is the one that's going to create that mirrored block device. What's a block device? It's not the file, but it's the actual underlying file system. But we look at like tracks and sectors. It's going to mirror the exact same tracks or sectors over to a remote partition. Hopefully this is come up. What is that running on? Ophelia? Is that the slow one?
Yeah.
Nice. Oh. Maybe what I should do is just do it all in this one MySQL and then clone it again. We'll see. Okay. Hello. Not that many packages on my table. And I also don't know, as I come down here, basically, let's explain this. I'm creating a resource, and a resource for drbd to get a hold of. So this is a configuration file that drbd uses. I have to specify which, well, we're going to call this, as soon as I create this special resource, it's going to be known to our file system as /dev_drbd1. The disk that's going to be part of this special file system is going to be dev sda3, dev sda2, whatever it shows up in fdisk as in just a second. I don't remember what metadisk means, but basically these are our nodes that are going to participate in our replication strategy. So this is our host name. Mine's going to be MySQL C and MySQL D. And you provide the IP addresses of each, along with a particular port that needs to connect to on that machine in order to make this replication happen. And that's it. So MySQL and MySQL2 are my host names and their respective IPs. Now, what I don't think you have to have name resolutions set up for any of this to work. Since we're plugging in the IPs manually here, it'll be okay. And we need this exact same resource file on the other node. Now, I think, if I remember correctly, this replication strategy, I wanted to say it was only capable of doing between 2 nodes, but that's not right. You'll see in just 1 second, we can have, there's always one primary node, and the primary node is the only one that can mount the file system. The other node cannot. Wow, that was really slow. So I'm going to make sure that I can have the install running over here on this other node, drbd utils and heartbeat. And we'll make sure this one's not my primary because that is dating directory. Just want to hit yes so I can leave it. I don't know if I have to hit yes or if it's going to go. All right, well, whatever. All right, so so it says go over to etcdrbd.conf and put this line at the end. If you look at, I'm just deviating slightly from my instructions for a second. If I look at drbd.conf, can you read that file and tell me what it's doing? It says go grab this file, and then what?
And then grab the other file.
Go into this directory, grab anything that starts with this, ends with an RES. So I could copy paste this highlighted stuff right underneath this, but instead I'm going to make it just a little bit more manageable, and I'm going to name it a RES file inside of that directory. I'm just calling it foo. I'm going to take this and copy it in there, and then, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Is that not going to work for me? I mean, essentially, we just need to. And, you know, I can't remember if indentation matters or not, but I think it does. Okay, not quite there. I need to update these two the correct locations. So this is C. Yeah, I got that. And then these are my different IP addresses. And that was right. These are mine. Obviously, put in yours there. And is this installing in? Okay. So I've typed in this file, and once again, this just says which nodes are participating. And oh, I've also got to, before I say that that's good, I'm going to go look at. Okay, so it's SDA2 is the partition I actually want to mirror. So I have to come back up here and change this to SDA2. So the one I gave you on the website was just a sample, but you might have to go change some things. Any questions up to there? Hopefully it'll come together in a second when we fire it up. Okay. I can actually go to the next step before I copy this over to the other node. Just get that. No, I'll probably SCP it over. That's probably easier. I can do that now.
What do you do again when I got my first machine made and I want to pull it over, and it's not showing up in the images folder on Saturn or where else for that matter?
Like here, when it says this gives you a key of where it's stored.
Oh, okay.
So you have to go into that location.
I did that one.
You've been in there, you don't see it? And that's it, it's only on, like this one's only on Ophelia.
Yeah, I went inside, before the other day, I was where mine is, and find it out, so I'll try.
Interesting.
I'm sure it's somewhere.
Yeah, and yours might not be on GSpace, it might be in /C/.
Well, if you SSH into like him, that it would be a Pampa server, right? Or,
Actually, I take that back. No, because
or creates a number.
GSpace or GSpace actually is just a shared. So I should have all mine. Yeah, all mine. Whether or not they're running on that machine or not already.
Look, those are mine,
Man, you're awesome. You're close to me. Okay, this done installing? No. It's okay. Sudo move foo into etc drbd etc. Oh, it's not done installing it. That's why I can't do that. Duh. Let's just pause for a second then. Okay, any questions yet? This is just the setup. Here in just a second, as I get down to the next commands, we'll start up the service, and we'll be able then to see how this actually works. Might take a while, so let me jump back here. So back on this host, I'm just going to start with the next command. So this says create, basically create the file system for resource 0. Oh, gotta do sudo. All right, and so that's a pretty quick thing. It just says new drbd meta block, data block successfully created, success, and now I have to wait until this node is done. On the plus side, I can log in a lot fast now. Oh, now I have to copy over there. And then I'm going to issue the same command over here on this side. Or, no, not just a second. I'm going to wait till it's done. Then I'm going to issue the same command. So you can see I'm about right here on this highlighted line. And then essentially what we're going to do is we're going to sync the two file systems, and we're going to mount where appropriate, and go from there. We'll see if this eventually finishes. That works good. Heartbeat, did you use that one, Chris? Or did you guys use that in your server class? Someone was talking about
No, I was setting it up on our load balancer so that we had 2 points of failure instead of 1.
Oh. Ooh. Reminds me, another senior project idea. We're going to co-locate the servers over in the data center over here. So we could set up those servers, get some heartbeat going on there. Sorry, this is a slow node.
What are they wanting to co-locate over here?
I'm not sure what we've decided to yet. We've talked in the past about our DNS servers. Maybe Helios, maybe their web server. We have a long wish list. I don't know that any of it will happen. All right, let's try this command again. What are you talking about? This is supposed to not mentioned with an on keyword.
That's something mine's saying too.
That doesn't actually work. Okay, did I type something wrong here? Oh, typed it wrong. It's not MySQL 2. Didn't type my node name correctly. There we go. So something was tagged wrong in my resource file. Okay, at this point, once they've both successfully done that command, it initialized the drbd metadata block. Now I have to choose. I'm going to start up drbd on both ends. Service start. Sudo service drbd start. And hopefully they'll be able to talk to each other in that. That's supposedly successful output, but now we're going to use this command quite a bit, proc drbd. And this gives us some information that we'll explore in just a moment. I'll just do it on the other node, okay? Does anyone know if OS 10 has a cluster SSH client? I hate doing the same things on both ends. So. Okay, now, the next command, I'm going to just, well, I'll just do it in order now. We could save just a smidgen of time. Okay, so there's a machine, you have to choose the machine you want to be the primary. Think of, or the master. Think of the replication we did a few days ago. We had to choose one node to be the master and then a couple slaves. Well, in this case, I'm just doing a one-to-one. So we're just pairing, we're just mirroring. And so by that same token, whatever machine you choose to be primary, that means that machine is the only one that's going to be able to mount the file system. Keep that in mind. All right, so I'm just going to choose MySQL-C to be my primary, and I'm going to execute this command. I should see some interesting things happening, but we really can't see it until we cat proc drbd, and this changed to give us this information. It says, we are the primary, we're connected to a secondary, so maybe this is only a one-to-one thing. Right now, our data store on our primary, we're up to date, but the remote side, the secondary, is inconsistent. And at the moment, we are syncing our data. This is block by block, block level replication. So I guess that could pose a problem. If we have any sort of block error, and we're doing this, it's just going to replicate that block error over to the other device. And anyway, so it's syncing, and it tells us approximately when that's going to be done. And notice it says it's not going to be finished for 2 hours. So we're going to change something. That's the next line down here. It says, if the syncing is going too slow, you can go into this file and add the following. All right, so I'm going to go to that file, global comment, jump down to syncer line, and I'm going to set my rate at 20 meg. You know, I don't know if I have to do this on both ends, but just to be safe, I'm going to. Great. So this says, let's sync at 20 megabit per second. Whatever. And then I'm going to issue that last command that I just did again. Go back into cat proc drbd. Oh, no. I can't do that, I remember. I've got to sudo service drbd stop. And the same thing over here. Stopping the drbd again, then I'll start it again on both nodes.
They don't have like a restart.
Probably so, but, and then I'm going to issue that command again. You're good, thanks. Okay, so now I'm going a little bit faster. Not a lot, but I was going at about 1,000 kilobytes per second, or kilobits per second there. And now I'm 3,600, so it's going a little faster. And if I wasn't on Ophelia, it would go faster than that, I'm sure. Okay, so what? So we're syncing data. All right. Fine. We don't have to wait for it to finish syncing, fortunately. So the next thing I'm going to do is to that distributed replicated block device, that special resource that we just created, I'm going to make it an ext2 or ext3 file system. So what was our resource name up here is I called it drbd1. So that's what it should be, drbd1. Sudo mkfs .ext. Let's try ext3. Try to deviate from the instructions so I can fail. So -q says just do this quietly. That is, how many gigs was it? Like 10 gigs? It shouldn't take too long. And if I want to, while that's going, I'll flip over to the, what do we call it, the secondary, and we can see now that I'm on the secondary, so it lists me first. Then it says we're connected to the primary. My data is inconsistent, but the remote data is up to date. And it looks like our speed then is still pretty good. Oh, it says right now I'm wanting 20 meg. I'm only getting about 4 meg. I don't know why that's so slow. It doesn't matter. It'll eventually finish one day. So let's wait for that MKFS file system to finish. Maybe I shouldn't have done -q. Oh, now at this point, I basically, let's see, jump back here. I probably should have said, this command is done on the primary. This command I did on both nodes. The rest of the commands I'm going to do on one node or the other node. Oh, test it. I can't do this part until it's finished syncing. But, oh, I can do some of it. Why that's taking forever? Okay, 1 second. So that should have made the file system. And now I can, once I've got the file system created, then I can mount it. So let's just jump out here. Make dir temp sudo mount dev drbd1 to my temp directory. Why is that not going command dev drbd1 is mounted on temp. Dev drbd1 has about 9.2 gigs. And questions yet? Okay, so this is going to take a while to sync. But what has to happen, this is what I mounted to our new directory. The whole purpose of this is if I have a failure on one node, I want to be able to pick this up on another node. So while that is syncing, I'm going to jump over here. This is my backup. But you can see that this one, this one's already synced. I have up to date on the primary, up to date on the secondary. I don't know if I've mounted it yet. Let's just try that. Make temp sudo mount dev drbd1 to my temp and mount once again. So basically that's the same place where I just ended up a second ago, but I skipped the syncing step because I didn't want to wait 30 minutes. Okay, so at this point, let's go into my temp directory. Lost and found always shows up when you mount a file system, it seems like, or at least when you mount this type of file system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create just a few files. Okay. And let's actually have one that has some data in it. Don't really care what. Just any sort of data. Maybe just a couple more pieces of information real quick. Pieces of data. What else could I get?
Lauren.
There's no address up here. Deal. Okay, fine. We get you. Oh, yeah, I knew that. So yeah, you'll get the idea in a second. Okay. So fine. I have this is where I've got to. I've created some temporary files. Now I'm going to do a manual failover. In a while, maybe next time, because I don't have enough time today, I'll have an automatic failover. So just think of these next steps as doing a manual failover. Number one, I'm going to umount temp, unmounted it, and then I'm going to drbd adm secondary. Actually, it was an R0, is that what we call it? It was an R1. R0. Cat proc drbd. Let's take a look at our drbd status. Now we're both configured as secondary. The thing I'll have to remember here is if I'm in secondary, I cannot mount the file system. But that's okay. What I wanted to do is I wanted to, over here on this one node, is I wanted to configure it as secondary. Then I'm going to flip the other one to primary, assuming this node is up. Sounds like on Ophelia as well. Easy still. Should be up. Sorry about the delays here. Something's wrong with this network.
Cordelia right now is one that's super slow.
I don't know why it's not letting me do that, but so Now I've configured myself to be the primary, and assuming that other issues are not causing us grief. Actually, I don't know if I need to do that. Now, dev. What was it? Wait. drbd 1 to 10. Okay, so let me. You can't see this very well either. Sorry, I don't know why SSH is not working over in that note. But I was on MySQL-A. I had mounted that file system, put some stuff on it. Then I flipped it to secondary. I went over to this node, flipped. We have an earthquake. Then I went over to the second node and I flipped this to primary, mounted the file system, all the files are there. Okay. So how is this different than, say, NFS or Windows File Share? Is it? Well, NFS, first off, when you guys set up an NFS server, here's NFS, and then we have a couple of clients, right? I mean, essentially that's it. So drbd is a similar. Well, I mean, it's a file system, obviously. However, drbd, whereas this is kind of usually a standalone server, right? If the NFS mount point goes down, the data's gone. If that NFS server goes down, the data's gone. Whereas here, drbd is kind of like, it's a block device, so it actually resides on a different partition of your file system. So here's another machine, drbd, another OS. These are continually staying in sync with one another, so that if this node goes offline, that node can pick up and it has no data loss. Now, we probably could, I'm trying to think here, we should be able to export this as an NFS file system. I've never done it, but since it's just I've mounted something, we probably could just put it in Etsy exports and share it out now as NFS, and we could have, it might be kind of fun to do, so now I could point, oh yeah, actually we could. I could point my NFS client to, what do you have to point NFS clients to? Just an IP address? Right? Okay, so in this, not today, but another layer to this is Heartbeat. And Heartbeat just basically provides a virtual NIC with an IP address. And as soon as this, so the IP would come up right here. As soon as that node failed, that IP would come up over here, and the client would have no idea what's going on. It should still work. So I did a manual failover, and we should be able to still see, it's up to date. Once I've synced once, it doesn't, then it doesn't have to copy every block. When you initially set up drbd, it has to sync every single block, but from here on out, it only syncs the blocks that change, so it really shouldn't take too much more effort. Okay, so right here we tested it. Once again, we can only have the primary mounted as a file system. Secondary cannot be mounted, and you can only have one primary at a time. I've said that several times. If I were to go back to MySQL-A and try to mount that file system again, it would yell at me and say, hey, let's try it. So here I am. I'm on the secondary, and let's do a sudo mount dev drbd 1 to 10. Write protected mounting read only. Doesn't work, which is what I expected. So, if you remember these steps, first it has to unmount, flip from secondary to primary on both nodes, or vice versa, then mount the file system. We need to have some way of automating that, and that's what Heartbeat's going to take care of for us. Of course, Heartbeat is just going to basically, is this node up, is it up, is it up, is it up? And Heartbeat runs between these two nodes, and it's kind of cool. And so that's what I'll be setting up next time. Well, actually I'll make, before I add one more step to this. Right now we're just doing a plain, just a couple files. I will move, since we're talking about MySQL, I'll move MySQL's data directory into that newly mounted mount, and then we'll fail over MySQL manually. Then finally we get into Heartbeat and do that more automated. And if you're looking at how I'm doing this, this is your project, MySQL. You guys are going to do the same thing I'm doing here, but you create drbd, following the instructions I just did, and then after you get drbd configured, so this is lastly, after we have manual failover working okay, then we can use Heartbeat to have it manually fail over for us. So I'll try to follow those instructions as well. Probably get to that next time too.
You wouldn't mind showing, again, the drbd.conf file?
Sorry. So other than that, see you Friday, huh? Unless you're at Code Camp. No one's good.
I'm at Coke Camp.
All right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry, cold busy. Chris will take a video.
You can always slip over here and bring us a donut.
Compressed all my videos again in 720p. They're all down to 300 meg.
They should really be looking at different.
You have videos too? We have